Welcome back. This year alone, the United States has faced 27 major weather and climate disasters, each causing more than $1 billion in damages. Experts warn emergency preparedness is no longer optional. It's essential for everyone, no matter where you live. Yet, a recent survey shows that over a third of adults nationwide lack a solid communication strategy for themselves or their families during emergencies. Joining us now is the National Public Safety Strategist at T-Mobile, Craig Martinez. Craig, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brittany.
Of course, so let's get into why is it so important now more than ever for families to have an emergency communication plan in place?
When you look at any of these events, whether they're planned or unplanned, we have to make sure, not only as a society but as a family, we plan for the unexpected. For instance, my family, I make sure they have all of the phone numbers that they may or may not need during a disaster. I mean, my 20-year-old daughter may not think she needs the number to the power or water department, but in an emergency, she might. The other thing we do as a family, make sure we have a go kit available that we can grab and hit the road really quickly that has all the important documents we might need: water, non perishable food, flashlights, phone chargers, and things like that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And can you let us
Yeah.
know what are some of the most common mistakes people make when preparing for natural disasters like hurricanes, tornadoes, or wildfires?
Yeah, connectivity is so vital, not only during disasters, but in our day to day. I mean, think how much we use not only our cell phone, but our Wi-Fi and our internet. So you've got to plan for some of those things, maybe having disruptions during emergencies, especially. Cellular networks can be overwhelmed during a disaster. And so if you still have power at your home and you want to make a phone call, try to use Wi-Fi calling. If you're unable to make a phone call, try sending a text that uses less data and may or may not get through on these networks. So you've always got to kind of plan for those things, as well as one thing that we utilized during Hurricanes Helene, Milton, and the LA wildfires was T-Satellite via Starlink. That's text messages sent and received from here to satellites orbiting the Earth. And during those events, more than 500,000 text messages and 140 wireless alerts were actually sent and received.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And so, when it comes to better preparing yourself for disasters before they strike, what are some steps that individuals can take?
Yeah, one thing you do want to make sure you do is on your settings on your cell phone, actually enable wireless emergency alerts. That's something that when those emergencies go out and sent out, you need to make sure that's turned on so you can receive them. Make sure your cell phones are always charged. Have a portable charging pack if you can, and if you don't have either of those, just make sure that you're using like battery saving or dark mode on your phone to extend the life of your battery in your phone. And I've had more than nearly 3 decades of military and law enforcement experience. And police and fire departments are responding to around 200 million emergencies every year, or 911 calls, right? And a lot of times when we're in those situations or debriefing the aftermath, connectivity or communication is always at the forefront of our conversation. And first responders use so many data intensive tools nowadays: drones, body worn cameras, smartphones, laptops, thermal imaging. All of these different tools they use require data connectivity. And that's where we've kind of stepped up and created T Priority, which is like a network slice given to first responder agencies during these times of need that will help with capacity. It will ensure, faster 5G speeds with the highest priority level, and they're never deprioritized. And so this solution was built to fill that data gap during these emergencies.
That's amazing. And at the top of the interview,
Yeah.
you mentioned about the Go Pack that you have for your family. But for
Mhm.
families right now who have limited resources and who may not be able to grab everything at once or, go to the store and get everything that they need to put that together at once, what are
Yeah.
some steps that they can take with limited resources to create an effective emergency plan without spending a lot of money?
Yeah, one of the things, I mean, you look at what you have currently in your home right now. I could put together a cache of devices or tools or food and water and things like that right now without having to go anywhere to the store. And so it's stuff that I already have in my home. But the thing that most families, my family could be in this category as well in the past was we don't prepare, we don't talk, we don't train. Law enforcement and fire departments across the country train every day for these types of things, but do you do that at home? How
Mhm.
many of us have even something as simple as a fire drill plan that we've worked out with our kids to, if there's a fire in our home, what do we do? Where do we meet? How do you get in? How do you get out? So you always have to have these hard conversations about the what ifs. What if this is to happen or that? What are we going to do as a family to make sure that we're all safe?
Thank you for mentioning that. I do think that that is
Yeah.
so important to do so because I wanted to ask you, what role do local agencies play in helping their communities prepare? However, sometimes when it's a mass casualty or a mass disaster, they cannot get to everybody at that exact moment. So tell us a little bit about the role that local agencies play in this.
Yeah, for sure. So when these things happen, first responder agencies are always, my wife always knew during my 23 years of law enforcement experience that when something bad was going on or a disaster struck, that I was probably not going to be home because I was
Mhm.
going to be at work and have to work and mandatory shift coverings and things like that. And so one of the things that law enforcement and fire departments do is they try to plan for these, and when they do plan, they try to involve the community members. And so I would solicit you to reach out to your police and fire departments and ask what they're doing and how can you get involved. I mean, that ensures that you know what those first responder agencies are doing and how you can help, because a lot of times we can't do it all. And we depend on the community and those citizens around us to kind of help step in where we can. But the one thing we have to make sure that we're able to do is communicate and always have that plan, have a redundant plan of if this goes out, how do I communicate with this? Or if that goes out, how would I communicate with that?
Again, thank you for sharing. And now let's talk
Yeah.
about in communication strategies. According to a recent T-Mobile study, 34% of U.S. adults don't have a communication plan. So, what are some of the risks, and what can people do about it?
Yeah, so one of the things you need to do, regardless of what provider you're on, you need to make sure that you've got the most robust plan with the highest level of prioritization, especially our first responders on the individual side of the house. Because this solution in T priority is available to millions of first responders across the country now, individually, meaning on their individual cellular plan, they can have T priority. So we can ensure that if they're at work or not during these events, that they'll have the needed connectivity that is so vital for them to be able to do their life-saving job.
Absolutely. And for our viewers, what resources would you recommend for people looking to build or improve their emergency preparedness plans?
Yeah, there's so many things out there, especially on the internet. When you look at FEMA's website, they have so many tools and links available and best practices for you to utilize for your family to stay safe during these events that can be very, very devastating, as some of that we've seen. I mean, it's currently June 4th and the start of hurricane season is here. I know we've kind of felt with some of the recent weather that it might have started earlier, but
Mhm.
hurricane season is here, so now is the best time to prepare for these events with you and your families.
Absolutely. Now, as we wrap up, can you tell us what is one key takeaway that you want our viewers to remember when it comes to staying safe and connected during a disaster?
One key thing, Brittany, preparation. Plan for the unexpected. That's my best advice.
Thank you so much again for sharing that. And Craig, thank you so much for sitting down with us today. This was a really, really informative subject and subject matter. So thank you for speaking with us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Brittany.
For more information, you can visit their website at tmobile.com/business. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more open right after this.